Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all keeping well. Today we're going to have a brief chat about music production, specifically switching from Ableton Live to Logic Pro. Now, why do this, you might ask? It's hard to explain. So I'm a 5-year, longish term Ableton Live user. Both programs were created around about the same time in the late 90s to the early 2000s, although, as you can see, Ableton's user interface has remained largely unchanged, whereas Apple's Logic Pro has just evolved a numerous amount of times now, and to the point where it's just completely, you couldn't tell what Logic 6 was in comparison to Logic 10. Given the wide range of music genres, it's of no surprise to anyone that there are this many digital audio workstations available to choose from, and everyone has their own workflow. There's no right or wrong way to come to a solution. You can take multiple routes to solve the same problem, and this could not be truer in the sense of music production. So I think it's only right to explore other options available, and having stuck with Ableton for the past 5 years, I figured that now, having a few weeks with some downtime, I would explore Logic Pro. And needless to say, there were a number of reasons why I have put off making any kind of change, and that's purely because I'm stuck with Ableton and I know the ways of Ableton. So today in this video, I'm going to try and demystify some of the biggest bugbears Ableton Live users have over Logic Pro, and hopefully I can smoothen up the change if anybody else is contemplating something similar. So here goes. Here are my 5 top tips for migrating from Ableton Live to Logic Pro. Okay, so if we get stuck into this little session I've conjured up here, this is a session I've ported over from Ableton Live into Logic Pro, manually I might add, and we'll just go ahead and play it. Turn the metronome off. Right, so there's a little bit of the session. Now if I hit play again, right, so you've noticed that it's playing right off from where I'd stopped it, which might be normal behavior in Logic, but it certainly isn't in Ableton. And this is the biggest, most irritating bugbear that I found when I first started using the program even. Fortunately, this one is relatively easy to fix. So if I take the playhead, which is this thing that I'm dragging along up here, we don't really have a playhead in Ableton Live. We've instead got, you can just really click anywhere. You can set your beat grid, and you can select anywhere, and you can just click and play. So to replicate this in Logic, what we can do is just right click the play button, and you see we've got these 2 options here: play from selected region or play from last locate position. I'm going to go and check both of them. So remember, we're just right clicking the play button here, and then literally anywhere you drop the playhead, you see how it's jumping back to where I'd selected. There is still a difference though. You have to select the region from this thin strip here, just below the bar markers. Tip 1.5, and this is one that popped up out of the blue, didn't expect this, but I had just noticed when I had gone to hit play midway through a MIDI bar, you might notice that a lot of notes are missing. We'll just give this an example. See, my pads don't come back in until the loop repeats itself. This is fortunately very easy to fix again. If we head into our project settings, this is noticeably different from preferences. So project settings, click MIDI here, and what we're going to do is go to the Chase tab, and we'll see here notes is unchecked. Just go ahead and check that. Save my project while I'm at it. And now, if I hit play, the 3rd bar, notice our pads, we're midway through our pads here, so I'll just go and hit play again. So the pads played straight away. That's the next most annoying thing sorted. Tip number 2, keyboard commands. This one you probably saw coming from a mile off, but it's of no surprise to anybody that the keyboard commands in Ableton Live and Apple Logic Pro are entirely different. There's a million ways to get to the same solution. It's no surprise that they've decided to use different keyboard commands, though a little bit frustrating if you're trying to move between programs. Nonetheless, it's relatively straightforward. So to do this, I'm going to look at a MIDI region. So here is one of the bass sections. So I'll just go back and... Right, so fairly straightforward. Much like in Ableton Live, just Command A, you've selected all of your notes. But if you want to, say, transpose them up a semitone... Oh, I've just selected another track. No, didn't want to do that. Yeah, so what you want to do here is use a modifier key. Now in that case, this is going to be Option or Alt. Hold that down and you will be able to transpose no problem. And likewise hold Shift down, up an octave, down an octave, nice and straightforward. Though, if you want to move stuff a few measures along, going left and right, not working, is it? So to do that, what we need to do is select our notes that we want to change, and then right click any odd note, and you've got this option here, set nudge value. So this is what we're doing. Apple's calling it, we're nudging the notes left or right. So in this case, I'm going to set the nudge value to 16th. That is not the default option, so you will need to select that. And much like when we were moving our notes up or down the scale, we're going to hold down Option, and there we go. We can move them along. So that is those two. And then the only other things that really did confuse me was how do we get this nice condensed view, because Logic is very much all spread out by default. So to do that, we hold down Command and plus. No, it's not those. It's not Command plus. I know that would be far too sensible. Instead, what you're going to do is hold down Control and Alt or Option, and there you go. Or if you want to hold down, if you want to zoom the channels vertically, just hold down Option, and voila. You can now view your entire beautiful project, or part of it in my case. Tip number 3, time stretching and warping. Now, this is something that Ableton Live has really come into its own with for a really long time. Ableton has had the ability to warp tracks, which has incredibly simplified the process. Now we look at Logic. Over the years, Logic Pro has had a number of advances in this area, although it has lagged behind most other competing DAWs for a while when it comes to time stretching. Maybe other than Pro Tools, I think they're still doing it the old-fashioned way. As of version 10.4, Smart Tempo has revolutionized this process, and it's made it more or less as straightforward as Ableton Live. And to demonstrate that, I'm just going to find some track that has not been analyzed. And I'm going to drag that into my arrange. So just go to that, and as you can see here, double clicking on the file, selecting the Smart Tempo view, which is already selected, and it is now the default behavior as of Logic 10.4 or later. And if I go ahead and solo that channel and then just play the project. Logic Pro has detected the correct BPM and has already applied the changes that we need to. To ensure it does this properly though, what we want to do is go into our project settings and again select Smart Tempo, and then the default behavior for imported audio files should be align bars and beats, which means that when you drag an audio file onto your arrange view, by default, Logic will, if it does not have any BPM data for the file, it will generate its own data for that and automatically stretch it. What is quite cool, and you'll see a similar pattern in most of the features in Logic, is you are given a lot more control over what exactly you want to do, in this case with the pitch and time. So with flex time, you've got a number of algorithms you can use. This is same in Ableton Live. If I pick an a track here. You've got anything from complex pro to the beats, algorithms, and if I go back into Logic here, we can choose monophonic or polyphonic are generally the two that you go to, or you can set it to automatic. And what we can do, if we zoom in further, in this view, this flex time view, which has been around since Logic 9, you can stretch out individual sections. So we can change that to monophonic, and you can just see what the difference is. Obviously, it's a pretty extreme example, but if we change that to, say, rhythmic, or slicing, it's quite cool, isn't it? There's a lot of cool things you can play around with in Logic, and it would be nice if Ableton gave users the option to do this in future directly on the arranged view itself, although in Ableton you can just choose your warp markers, create another warp mark there and drag it out. Moving swiftly on to number 4, sample view and loops. If we head back over into Ableton Live, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, we have this wonderfully large view with all of your favorite places, and you can just go through, go into your loops, and you've got everything you want to play out there. No fussing around, it's there, and you can drag it straight in. Now, it's frustrating that Apple don't include something like this in Logic Pro. There is a way you can get something close to it though. You may be familiar with the Apple Loops view, and now this is only for Apple formatted loops, and you can of course get sample packs which have been formatted as this, but if you're like me and you've got a lot of WAV samples you've accrued over many years, this just isn't possible. But and I didn't realise this until I had a good Google and came across the answer, but untagged loops is the next best thing to that. Essentially what it's giving you is a similar to this folder view in Ableton Live, it's giving that on the right hand side of the screen, and you can drill down into your folders and pick all of the tracks you need until your heart's content, and you can drag them straight into your project as well, just as you could in Ableton Live. Pick 128 thing, so I'll drop that in, and just as we dropped in the last one, Smart Tempo has already got on that, but if I'm going to zoom in and just align that up, now we can go ahead and play that. Perfect. So that is how you do that, and if you want to add in other stuff to your collection, so say if I wanted to move in something from my music file, if I go back to my untagged loops and just drag in this file here, add that to untagged loops, and we can see that if I scroll up and go into user loops, we have got our individual track there. Stop that before I get a copyright strike. And yeah, really is as simple as that. So I know it's not perfect, but hopefully that saves you a little bit of time. Moving swiftly on to our final tip, number 5, and that is working with MIDI clips, or more specifically, the MARQUEE tool. Now in Ableton Live, it is really easy to break up or edit an audio sample. To do that, all you need to do is just click on your sample here, hit Command E, and you've split it into 2. Likewise, you can hit Command J, and it's now its own sample, and just go in there, flick on loop, and voila. Now in Logic Pro, very easy to do this again. What we need is our MARQUEE tool, and you see you've got these 2 tools front and center here. On the left you've got the pointer, on the right you can select, much like on the left actually, you can select any tools here, or you can just hit T and a pop-up menu will come up where you can select the tool that you want. So if I hit R, I've got the Marquee tool. Now if I zoom in again and just select the section of track that I want, notice that the Marquee tool, if I hit T twice, that'll take me to the pointer, and just drag that, it will allow me to take that and do whatever I want with it. So I can go ahead and loop that, and that is as easy as it is. And finally, last but not least, tip 6, capturing MIDI. This was a feature that was recently introduced in Ableton Live 10. And if you were, say, having a jam and you forgot to hit record, don't worry, all of your MIDI is captured. And believe it or not, Logic does also have this feature built in, and it's really easy to activate. To do that, you just right-click the menu bar and hit Customize Control and Display. And in the transport heading, if you come right down, you will see at the bottom capture recording. I would recommend doing save these as default and then hit OK, and at least when you start a new project, you won't lose that information. So if I begin by playing some notes, and oh no, I didn't hit record, but not a problem because I can just hit this button here and it's actually saved it. And one other thing to remember is you see which track we have highlighted here. That is the track in which when you perform an action, so such as copy, cut, paste, that's where Logic will take the information from, not from where your mouse is in the arrange view, like in Ableton. So do bear that in mind as well. So if I just play that back, it saved our recording data. I'm pretty sure those are the most useful tips I found making the transition over the past few weeks, and while I've not yet come to a conclusion as to whether I'm going to stick with Logic or go back to Ableton, I'm certainly going to put more time into finding out which is the right program for me. Everything else I found to be a relatively easy transition, but if there are any tips or any extra comments you might have, please do leave them down in the comment section so that other people can find them, and I'll more than happily pin comments that are valid suggestions for other people to follow. But I'll let you know how I got on with this in the coming months, so watch out for an update on that. In the meantime though, thanks very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next week for another video.